Hello and welcome back to Red Devils Talk, brought to you by the Elite Football Show. I hope you're all doing very well during this lockdown. We have got another fantastic show for you today. Finally, feels like the longest international break I can ever remember is over. The first week was nice to get away from United a little bit, but I'm telling you, this last week has gone so slowly. So we're only three of us today. Well, obviously, including myself. Four. Pauly will be over in shortly. Ciaran, how are you, mate? I haven't seen you for a while. How have you found the international break?
I hate the international break because unless it's a World Cup or Euros, I just find them so boring because obviously Ireland, they're so crap. So I hate watching international football.
Yeah, it must be unfortunate.
Honestly, even most United fans that when I'm at the games and it kind of comes up, I don't think many like watching England play. So there's probably a lot in the exact same kind of situation that I am. Is the more club football, the better. Even when United are playing like crap, it's better than watching international football.
So true. Jamie, good evening, mate. Nice to see you here again. And Helly as well, as always, good evening. Hope you're doing well. I hope Norway win for your sake. Joe, hello, mate. How are you? How are you feeling going into this game this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it from a United perspective, obviously we finished on a high before the international break, so no reason not to feel more confident about this, apart from the fact that we've struggled at home, obviously, this season. I don't think we've won a game in the league at home yet this season, so I suppose that sort of puts a bit of a dampener on it, but I don't know. I'm confident this weekend we will get something. I don't think it will be as convincing as a lot of people might think or a lot of people might like, but I do fancy us to get the result this weekend. And it's an important game, really, because it's an ideal game for us to get some players into the team that we need to see play, and also for us to try and work out a way of playing and maybe find a blueprint against teams at home. Because I think, like I said, it will be a tougher game than a lot of people expect. So if we can pick up 3 points here, it might do us some good.
Yeah, completely agree with that. And Mark, how are you, mate? Sorry that you're getting covered by the Red Devils Talk sign, but how are you doing? How are you feeling? Because I feel like the international break in some ways came at a bad time because United had a fantastic victory against Everton. But these are the games usually where we struggle, aren't they? The ones against the West Broms at home where you're expected to win. Unfortunately, sometimes things don't go your way. But are you feeling confident that United are finally going to be putting a run together like we need to? Because it's about time that we, really start to challenge the guys above us.
Yeah, I'm confident for several reasons. We played well against Everton, and I'm hoping we're going to bounce back. Well, we're going to come in with that same mentality. Our record after an international break is pretty good, and yeah, it's about time that we do start getting a run of form and some points together. And also, this is going to be a test where West Brom are struggling for points. They're probably going to try and come at us because they know home form is woeful. And but this could be another opportunity to really show that we can break down the lower block teams. So I am confident. I'm always confident going into a game. Sometimes I'm let down, but I do, like Joe has said and Ciaran, I feel pretty confident, and I think that we should come out winners comfortably.
Hopefully you haven't jinxed it there. Gaynor, how are you? Nice to see you in the comments. Laurie Babes. Lol, if I was Bilic, I'd put those comments around the changing room to motivate the players. That's probably from Joe, isn't it? Hopefully that we'll get the win. And Jamie said here, Bilic is clever sometimes. I think Bilic is actually a very good manager. And that's where we're going to go into now, guys. We're going to talk about West Brom a little bit because we want to give more of an insight into how they're going to set up. I think, Ciaran, the misconception is that West Brom are going to go and play a low block and they're going to sit deep. But I think from what we've seen this season, they're going to do anything but that. So are you able to give the listeners a bit of a breakdown in what you expect to see from West Brom, how they play against the bigger sides and how they play against the smaller sides, so the listeners have a better idea of how West Brom are going to set up?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I looked at all the games they played in the Premier League this year, so I didn't bother looking at like Carabao Cup or anything. And just from the start, so against Leicester, they played a 5-4-1. Against Everton, 5-4-1. Chelsea, 5-4-1. But then this is where it changes. Southampton 4-2-3-1, Burnley 4-1, 4-1, Brighton 4-1, 4-1, and Fulham 4-1, 4-1. So you look at those, and even against Tottenham, they went back to kind of the more conventional kind of 5-4-1 in terms of having that kind of five at the back. So looking at those, you'd expect that's the way they would start. Now, the one game I looked at because I thought stylistically it might be most kind of close to United was the West Brom and Everton game. Now, if anyone can remember back from that time, really the sending off kind of changed that game. But for the first 35 minutes or so, it was really, really close. They didn't give Everton a lot of the ball, or they didn't give them a lot of space. They were able to compact that midfield, but also what they're doing is they do press very high. Now, in that game against Everton, they used Callum Robinson. You've seen in other games, I think against Tottenham, they used Grant to do that, and Robinson was on the bench. But it's not just where they have the one or two pressing up high. They actually press with four attackers. So what they do is they have their striker kind of press on the ball-playing centre half. So against Everton, that was against Michael Keane. Against us, obviously, that's going to be Harry Maguire. But then the other aspect of it is their next two players that actually press on the kind of holding midfielders. So you saw that happen with Gomez and Alan for Everton. Now, the problem that we have is that if they do that against Fred and McTominay, that's been where we've struggled when we haven't been able to get through the press. And generally what happens is that once you get through the press, and Everton did on occasion, but the problem was that the defensive shape was actually pretty good, and it was hard for Everton to create the space. Now, Everton had, the difference really was the quality. The quality of the players for Everton were able to break through that defence and able to get the goals. Obviously, they got once more space came about because of the sending off. It became very easy. The same thing happened against Leicester. First 35 minutes, it was really, really tough. It was, if we remember, I think that game was 3-0 to Leicester, but it was really, really tough for the first 35 minutes. But then Leicester were able to kind of change it a little bit. Tielemans was unbelievable in that game. I think it was probably one of his best games for Leicester, being able to kind of disrupt that West Brom press. But the second part of it is that because they press so high, especially for kind of kickouts, it's really difficult for the goalkeeper because they've pretty much pressed the two centre halves. They press whoever they think is more dangerous as one of the wing backs. They'll leave one of them. But then, so you have your kind of one wing back, your two centre halves, and your two kind of holding midfielders for United's case, kind of occupied by West Bromwich players. So they're going to try and force De Gea to kick it long, which they did against Everton with Pickford. And Pickford just wasn't good enough in actually kind of supplying the ball. And West Brom were able to win because of their defensive shape. They're able to win the ball pretty quickly from Everton. And you saw in that first kind of 20 to 30 minutes that West Brom had a lot of chances. And if United aren't careful, the same thing will happen. You saw it against Chelsea. They went 3-0 up against Chelsea because they stuck with that defensive shape. They're probably one of the hardest working teams defensively. And if you're not really on it, if you look at any of West Brom's games, I think the only problem with them is the quality isn't there. The actual shape defensively and the tactics are right. They work, but the problem is if you don't have the players to carry it out for 90 minutes, it's difficult. And they've come up against teams that just have that little bit of extra quality. You saw it with Spurs. Everyone who was watching fantasy football hoping for Kane or Son to do really, really good. It was a really difficult game for them to get into, and it just came to a late goal for Harry Kane. The same thing can happen. Look, if United score early, I think it will be a pretty easy game for United because then space starts to open up. But this is the type of game that if United make a mistake early on and concede a goal, or it's 0-0 for a while, it'll be a very, very tricky game, and you could see it being a draw or United losing. Again, it comes to, will United be quick enough on the ball? Will the passing be kind of more precise? And will it be able to get through that kind of defensive system? If United can do that and create chances, they should be able to win the game. But if they can't break through that press, which we've seen before, it's going to be a very difficult game. And kind of going through West Brom's tactics and kind of what they've done actually worried me because of the way we play. Because of when you put pressure on Fred and McTominay and they can't get through that press and the passing isn't quick enough, which we've seen plenty of times, there's a problem. Watching the Everton game back versus West Brom, the one player that actually could help United if he plays might be Juan Mata, because he plays in a very similar role to James Rodriguez, and James was able to kind of get through West Brom fairly easily because he was getting into those spaces. I don't think Mata will start, but he could be an option to kind of come off the bench and actually lead United to kind of getting a goal later in the game.
Fantastic insight. Thank you very much, Ciaran. Guys, get your comments in. Joseph Simmons, hello, mate. Nice to see you here. Cavani to get his full debut. Joe, that's definitely an option, isn't it, for United? I think possibly playing with a more traditional number 9, someone who can hold the ball up a little bit better, a bit more of a focal point. Not to say Martial doesn't do that, but I think maybe, possibly going for someone like Cavani, and if Rashford's out, maybe shifting Martial to left could be an option. But with West Brom, I think they have got a lot of weaknesses, obviously. They're sitting at the foot of the table or in the bottom 3. And the big thing for them, although they've scored a lot of goals defensively, they have struggled while the shape's there, but they're full of mistakes. They're littered with mistakes. And I think when you look at some of their weaknesses, finishing is one of them. Defending through balls, defending against skillful players, set pieces as well has been a problem for them. So these are areas where United should be able to, in theory, they should be able to exploit. We've got skillful players. We've got players who can play those through balls. So looking at all of that, I mean, are you worried going into games? Is there anything in particular from West Brom that worries you? Is it more actually to do with what United do? Is it more that will United turn up? Because I think that's what it is most of the time. Will United start quickly? Will they have, the impetus? Will they have the bit between their teeth to really go and attack the opposition from the first go? Because the problem with United is they either start really slow or they start very quick and they tail off. And I think that is the problem. And if you tail off against West Brom, a side who'll be well up for it. Anyone that comes to Old Trafford, doesn't matter who they are, they'll go and play their best game. They'll work the hardest that they work. They'll press. They'll do everything they can, because playing Man United is your final. Is that a worry for you going into it?
Oh, yeah. United are a team where if they're not on it from the very beginning or on it at all in a match, they will lose games because they don't have that quality, unfortunately, at the moment to be able to, beat teams when they're not playing well, if you know what I mean. We've seen it a few times already this season. And I was quite confident about it until I listened to Ciaran's analysis, that was brilliant, by the way, and talking about the way that they like to set up. And like you say, it seems like on paper it's our worst nightmare. But, obviously Ciaran's stuff was great, but, the way I see it, I'm looking at, actually, this might not necessarily be about formations. This might be about who's available for both teams as well, by the way. I think we had some comments earlier that there's some suggestions that maybe both Rashford and Martial may be a doubt for this one. We've obviously had Cavani going away with Uruguay. There's been positive tests within the Uruguay squad. So that's 3 forwards who could potentially, be struggling. I'm looking at West Brom. West Brom, I think, could be potentially without Mateus Pereira, who's a massive player for them, a key player for them. I think Ivanovic, I'm not sure how much he's been playing, but he's also been isolating as well alongside that. And Callum Robinson apparently is sort of a little bit behind at the moment and may not be fit. So both teams have a way that they want to play this game. And like you said, United might want to play with a number 9, but actually what it might come down to is finding a formation with players you've got available. I think there could be quite a lot of players for both teams missing out here. We know, obviously, at left back.
I think a lot of teams are going to be going through that at the moment, aren't they?
I think that's
look at Liverpool
every week now. I think we're
Liverpool have got so many players out, haven't they?
The formation. Obviously, Ciaran did it brilliant there. He looked at how they play against different sides or whatever. It might not be so much how we line up against them. It might just be the players that we've got available will dictate the formation come the weekend, if you know what I mean. So I'm interested to see who's available, who plays. I'm excited if Telles plays. I've really enjoyed his debut against PSG. So if he can get another sort of 60 minutes, 90 minutes under his belt, I'll be interested to see what he can do. And if Cavani plays with Telles, that could be really good as well. You know what I mean? We've talked about that before. So, yeah, actually, we can look at it all day about how both teams want to set up and how they want to play and how they played all season. But both teams could actually be without a fair few players this weekend. And it'll be really interesting to see how they both line up.
Yeah, I agree. Mark, you got anything to add to that in terms of from United's perspective? Because this is really a must-win, and we should be expecting a win, shouldn't we? Anything but a win, and that's unacceptable.
Yeah, well, these are games that you always kind of insist that United should go to and get 3 points out of, and this is a problem we've had in the last couple of seasons. We seem to play well against the big six and struggle against the lesser teams. I'm a little bit more concerned now, and I'm not as confident as when I first went in after those comments from everybody. So, I mean, if Cavani is having to isolate Rashford and Martial, or whatever the issues are with them, Mason's going to have to step up if he's available. I don't really know. I mean, who else do you put up there?
Yeah, I think he's available. He's back in training today, so I think he should be all right.
Okay. I think he's been back since Monday, is it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And also, I think, just this idea that obviously it's more with Mason at the moment seems to be what's going on there with him, doesn't it? Rather than necessarily being a fitness thing. I think it's more...
Yeah, but the new PlayStation just came out, so how much sleep is he getting?
Exactly, that's true. Yeah. That's true.
Look, I think the one thing with Mason is you have to realize is that kid's going through a pretty tough time. Like and I know there's been a lot of talk about what happened with one of his friends who I can't remember what team that he played for, but that committed suicide. I think it was last
Jeremy Whiston from Man City. Yeah.
There's a lot of players around that age group that were very close to him. So. And then what with the other stories coming out, that can't be easy. So I think it's one that it might take time for Mason to get back in the mindset, because anyone who's had that happen, I know that's happened to, and it does mess with you. So he's only a kid, so I think you would prefer if some of the older players were available and that he could kind of ease himself back into it.
Yeah, I think Joe's spot on. It's really going to come down to who's available. Like Haider's right. This is you look at the fixture list. It's West Brom at home. They haven't won a game. They're all the way at the bottom of the table. If we don't win this game, it's really bad. But Martial trained on his own on Monday and missed the game last night for France, coming off of a wonderful performance where Deschamps didn't look like he was treating that game last night as a dead rubber, which it was, which is ridiculous. So the fact that he missed the game, not a good sign. Rashford, hobbled off against Everton, then ridiculously had to go to England camp just to be like, hey guys, my shoulder's bad, for them to be like, you're right, your shoulder's bad. Why don't you go rest it? And I've heard it's just a little niggle and he'll be back. I've heard he could be a doubt. So you all of a sudden look around like who's available. Like, yeah, Cavani has been, 12 Uruguayans have tested positive now. I mean, it's the same question now. Obviously they handled it. Right. Obviously they handled it well last month with Portugal when Ronaldo tested positive. When I was sitting here saying like, look, we need Bruno Fernandes in the team, but we need him to play against Newcastle. We need him to play against PSG, but is it safe? Is it smart to even have him around the team right now? Because what if he is positive and he spreads it around? That's Cavani. Like, are you capable of bringing Cavani around the team right now? Considering that we know that the Uruguayan players and staff were not being smart and safe with everything. And that's 3 forwards right there. So I know we've got some comments that are, making jokes that Dan James might be starting up front, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Dan James starting up front.
For a little while, have we?
Yeah,
you might have to get your boots, Pauly, and get over to the UK. You might have to do it yourself.
I mean, I'm like Dan James. I've got pace. Dan James is a bit faster than me. I've got pace. Once the ball comes to me, I'm pretty useless.
Yeah, we don't need another goalkeeper, mate. We're all right in that department.
On the field too, but like once the ball comes to me, like if I can't beat you with pace, like I'm pretty useless.
I think it's sort of slow for United, really. West Brom haven't really got any points yet, and they need a win. It's about to come at some point, and as I said, it will be sod's law that they get it against United. Yeah. So
it's always the case, Mark.
It is always the case, and that's a frustrating thing at the moment. But as you've all mentioned, we do need to start well and start as we mean to go on. I really hope that, you know, the confidence we would have got from Everton, and, you know, I guess it is a different team, a team that will attack you, and we were able to break them down and play very well. And it is going to be, unfortunately, it's so strange, isn't it? You know, being more concerned about the teams that will that are sort of you expect United to be, and it's concerning. But we just need to get a really good start, and I really hope my man Donny starts, because I think he'd be perfect.
It is frustrating, and it's also frustrating, like, because we've all, I think all of us are in agreement to say right now, why the effing F are we playing international football? And this has been, I mean, if this international break ended on Saturday, yeah, it's exactly what it is. FIFA's looking around and saying, hey, the leagues and UEFA, they're getting their money, like we should get ours too. If this break ended on Saturday, like, it would be bad for United, but not catastrophic. The last 2-3 days have been way worse. Like, things have gone way worse. It's not just bad for us. I mean, this has been a horrible break for Liverpool. They've lost a lot of players. City have lost some players. But this is the problem with this season is it's, you know, really catastrophic for us, because we're playing in, you know, the teams that are playing in Europe, we're playing twice a week, and those are the teams that have players that are good enough to be called up to their national teams. You know, Jack Grealish, Gareth Southgate, thank you, is running Jack Grealish into the ground, but that's, you know, other than him and Tyrone Mings, that's all Villa have to worry about. And West Brom don't have to worry as much. Yes, they have a few internationals here and there, but, you know, the teams the teams of lesser stature are built better to come out of this, because they just don't have as many players going away. It's not just the injuries; it's the fact that, like, this virus is just spreading amongst these teams.
Guys, when's it going to change though? Because, you know, is it going to take for a player to get seriously ill? Is that when they're going to change it?
We're not going on international football again until March. So, like, if, you know, at this point, it's too late.
There's only one way this was ever going to change, and it's the most drastic situation, is if somebody died. That's the problem.
That's exactly it.
That's the only way they would ever change that.
And that's a really bad approach, isn't it? Really, the poor people, like, you shouldn't be.
Or if somebody's, I'm sorry to be cynical and dark here, but if somebody's family member died, then maybe we would see the players take a different approach. If a wife or someone else got it, and the players were like, well, wait, I can go to work, get sick, and bring this home to my family.
But think about it. One of the most global superstars, Cristiano Ronaldo, got it, and they've decided to do it again and keep having people go. You've had Mo Salah now get it. How many more of kind of
big one though? He's an absolute machine, isn't he?
Name a star player. Name a star player. They've got other than Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar,
Pogba. No one said
one of them.
Salah, Thiago. Like, they've all gotten it.
And I don't know. Like I said, I think it's the only time they'd ever stop it if it was the most drastic situation. I think it's going to have to come to the point of where clubs are going to have to be the ones to be strong and say, we're not sending our players out because we're looking after their health. And I think clubs have to be stronger on that, especially when you see clubs that have been decimated by this.
Can't you get suspended if you miss an international match, though? And you're
fined. I don't think you'll be suspended.
Then it's those teams who decide not to take the field. There's always an ulterior motive, isn't there? You remember when we had the big debate at the start of restarting the Premier League? The bottom six didn't want us restart because they thought that if they were relegated, it wouldn't be fair. And like everyone, if anyone says I'm not playing, everyone's going to be like, right, why don't that team want to play? There's more to it than the COVID, if you know what I mean. The teams just get questioned, don't they?
Absolutely. Guys, we're going to move on because we've got to talk about United. I do agree with that. And there's some interesting comments. Joseph, I completely forgot that Igalo existed.
I did too. When I saw that comment, I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. He's there.
He'd probably be a good striker, for a good fit for that game. So let's hope we see him.
Okay, guys, let's move on. And we're going to talk about the midfield options and the defensive options. We're going to start with defensive options first because there might be a few injuries, coming in. Like, for example, Victor Lindelof I believe he was holding his back about 65 minutes in to the game the other night, and he could be a doubt. We obviously don't have Pauly's son, Luke Shaw, playing, which is a big loss for United. Possibly if Telles, I believe Telles can play, he hasn't been ruled out for COVID. There's negative test, positive test. I don't even know what's going on. I don't think anyone knows what's going on. So I'm going to start with you, Pauly. I mean, how do you expect United to really set up their defense? I'm going to do this way. Pauly and Ciaran, I'll come to you about the defense, and Marc and Joe, we'll talk about the midfield, and then we'll summarize at the end. But Pauly, could you see us going with 3 or 4 going into this game?
3, 4, 5, 6, I guess would surprise me. 2 or 6 would surprise me. Anything else would not surprise me. I mean, yeah, there's defensive issues, but like everything is interconnected and everything has an effect on something else. So, you know, like if Martial and Rashford aren't available, what are you doing up front? And does that mean you have to change your shape up front? Does that, so maybe you were settled on a 4 or a 3. And then because now Martial can't play, you need to make it, you know, now that I remember that Igalo is alive, thank you, Joseph, for bringing that to our attention. Maybe you're able to plug him in, but maybe maybe you have to change to a diamond, and maybe you were set on a 3. Now you have to set up in a diamond. How to line up. This is the difference between us as fans and what the manager's job is, because we are looking at this as what is the team that I should pick for West Brom, because we're looking at it as West Brom, and that game will happen. The result will happen. We'll all react. If it doesn't go well, then everybody's going to go all up in arms. But the manager has to look at, I've got West Brom on Saturday. I've got Istanbul on Tuesday. I've got Southampton the next week. What's the best route for this team? And
Pauly, also, you got to look at the analytics, which is what they'll be doing when it comes to selection. Harry Maguire's playing tonight, and that's three days now before the game. So, you know, these things have got to be looked at. And
you think Harry Maguire's not playing?
Oh, he's 100% playing.
Ollie's
the thing is,
I mean,
what if he gets injured, though? Do you know what I mean? Like Maguire seems to be a player that gets overplayed. I mean, he's always playing for England.
I mean, that's the other thing is Paul Pogba just played 3 times. He played 2 full games and 55 minutes of another game. Now you could say, well, we needed him to get match fit, and we did. But he's played 3 times in 6 days. That's a lot. So yeah, like there's so many things to look at. So when we sit here as fans and we're looking at West Brom, they are looking at everything else. So obviously the easy thing to say is if Alex Telles, we don't know what the hell's going on with Alex Telles. It was a positive test, negative test. Then they said it might have been a false positive. I didn't know that you could get COVID so soon again after originally having it. Why we let him fly to Brazil, where he came on in the 96th minute, and it was one of those like, here's a sub, throw the ball in, there's the whistle, and that's all his part. So we're going to make him spend, 28 combined hours on an airplane for that?
Yeah, ridiculous.
Right after he recovered from COVID to travel to Goodison Park with us, wasn't fit enough to be in the match day squad. He has played less than a minute of senior football in the last month. And at it, he played 66 minutes against PSG. So he's played 67 minutes since the beginning of October. You know, at deadline day, he went back to Brazil, and he came on as a sub a few times. So can you get 90 minutes out of him? The easy answer is, hey, you slot Alex Telles, and this is exactly why we got him. So that we, you know, whether if Telles can't play, Luke Shaw can play. If Luke Shaw can't play, Telles can play. But now you're saying, well, we have to put, you know, we're going to need width and a player of Tellez's caliber with his skill set to break down Istanbul. So if Telles can't go 90, if Telles can't go 90 minutes, or if playing him 90 minutes is going to rule him out of Istanbul, then do you play him? And that's the question that Ollie has to wrestle with is, do you start him? Do you,
what would be your selection then? If you had to pick and you're predicting what do you think will be the selection? I'm not going to ask what you think Ollie's is, because that's too difficult.
I genuinely don't know. Like he might, you know, he's been looking at Scotland and how they've been playing with McTominay as that right center back. So maybe if he says Telles can't play, we're going to go back 3 with Williams as a wing back. and we'll put McTominay in there, as the third center back. Or maybe he says we'll put Matic in there as the third center back, so that we have a left footer there. Or maybe he just says, you know what, we played Matic as the second center back against Istanbul, and maybe he just goes bold and starts him there, because again, you don't know if Lindelof is fit. Like, there is nothing he can do here that would surprise me. So I will go out on a limb and I will say Aaron Wan-Bissaka will play, Harry Maguire will play, Axel Tuanzebe will play. I don't know where Axel Tuanzebe will play. If Lindelof can go, I wouldn't be shocked to see Tuanzebe slot in as the left back. I genuinely don't know.
Yeah, Pauly, Ciaran, that's what I was going to ask you. This is a massive opportunity for Axel, isn't it? But we saw him come on at left back against who was it against? Was it against Istanbul? They played Everton. He came on against
played Arsenal last year. I mean, he had that bad turnover, but the rest of the game he was good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, Ciaran, could you possibly see that? I mean, look, it's actually quite. Oh, Jamie's just saying Maguire down injured. Let's hope that he's nothing. Right.
Oh, yep. Right. I just saw that on the phone. Oh, yeah, he's fine. He's fine.
But looking at it now, it's really worrying because the COVID aspect has added an extra layer, which we have to talk about in these podcasts now. Because when it comes to selection, I mean, Mark's dropped off somewhere. I don't know where he's gone. But you look at the selection now, and you're having to add this. We do a fantasy football podcast, and you have to think about when these South American players travel as well. It takes them a little bit longer to get back, etc. Sometimes they play a little bit later so that they're back a day later. So, I mean, how are you lining up? Would you risk putting Axel? Because putting Axel left back again is just a little bit defensive for me. I'd be tempted to go and bring in Williams, but I mean, he's been left out in the cold completely. What would you be doing? It's actually kind of a big dilemma here.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because, like Pauly says, it's from going basically 2 weeks without Premier League football to then having 3 games in the space of about 10 days. So it's a tricky one, but I think it always seems that first game back after the international break is you play the players that are fit enough to go and play as much of the game. And really the only players that we know of for that right now are probably Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Axel Tuanzebe, because the rest we're not sure of. I can't remember what the situation is with Eric Bailly because he's been out for the last couple of weeks.
He's hurt.
Yeah, so he's hurt as well. So there's really not that many options. You're not going to be bringing in, for example, Mengi won't be coming on. He won't be because he's playing today.
He's playing today and not well.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so
they're about 4-0 down to Morecambe, aren't they? Or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, it's look. I think in that one, there a lot of the young kids getting. It's the first time they've
welcome to senior football.
Exactly, properly getting tackled. They're from what I've been reading about, they're being bullied off the park. So, which is normal. It happens when it's a bunch of kind of 17, 18-year-olds. But defensively, it's tricky because the only two that I could probably confidently say would probably play would be Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Axel Tuanzebe. I'm assuming that Harry Maguire will start as well because unless he has a serious injury, he generally plays. The Victor Lindelof one is a tricky one actually because you look at it the last couple of weeks and he has had some niggling injuries as well where he's been on the bench. So it is a tricky one. Personally, I think if they think that Alex Telles is going to be one of the keys for the Istanbul game, prefer us to start him. If he passes his if there's more COVID tests that he has to pass, I would prefer that. And then if you can score and kind of get the game wrapped up and taking him off and then maybe bringing Brandon on, that's probably the best case scenario. Or you could look at it the other side where you start Brandon and then the last kind of 20 minutes or 25 minutes you bring Telles on to kind of whip a lot of the crosses in. It's one of those that, like Pauly said at the start, I don't know if we're going to play a 3 or 4 or 5. I'm assuming we're going to play a 4 because I think United will want to try and attack and because they're going to need to win this game. But it is one of those that I don't think there's not many selections in the defense that would surprise me. I think the only one at this point is that if Phil Jones starts, that's the only one that would surprise me.
Well, he's not eligible.
And he's not eligible.
So if we got special dispensation, I'd be a little surprised.
Yeah. So
imagine if we did, though, if we announced that we got special dispensation for Phil Jones, how crazy Twitter would go on Friday.
He'd get injured in about 20 minutes.
Even if we didn't put him in the match day squad, just if we said like we got special dispensation to include Phil Jones in our Premier League squads now, if like we made that announcement on Friday, people would go berserk.
It is crazy. Like I just feel like the Tellez one, I don't think we're going to know about that until he actually gets back to Manchester, because like you said, it's hard to know what the reporting is, because I'm pretty sure within the same hour or day he tested positive and negative. So I assume that when he tested positive, it was just that he was still showing signs of COVID and he didn't. But then whatever it was, 45 minutes later after that report, another report comes out saying that he's tested negative. So it's probably going to be one of those that all the players get tested the first day they come back. So I think we're probably going to have to wait. I would imagine when players come back from international duty, there probably will be a couple players that do get ruled out before the weekend.
And remember, he's coming back from South America. That's like a 14-hour flight. It was it's always.
I wouldn't be surprised if Tellez doesn't play.
Right,
Yeah,
South Americans. I'm not going to say they never play, but like it's routine for them to not play. Not just at United, but across the Premier League. It's routine for them to not play that first game back from an international break. Like we thought, we were saying, we had to travel back from Istanbul. I mean, he's traveling back from God only knows where. So he may not be up for it. And like Ciaran said, like I'm pretty sure if you get in on Thursday, you're getting a COVID test, you're not even training until Friday when you get cleared. So
exactly.
Well, I mean, Joseph's got
if I had to guess
here, though, guys.
The back four was, I'd probably say Wan-Bissaka, Tuanzebe, Maguire, and Brandon Williams. That would be my best guess for it. Just based on kind of with Lindelof and some of the other stories that have come out.
Yeah, I think so. Guys, we're going to move on to midfield. Thank you for all your comments. I'm going to read out Joseph's again. It's not really fair playing 8 p.m. Saturday night when we have a game.
Well, that's what you get for complaining that we played too early last time.
Yeah.
That was I said it as soon as it got announced. I said this was a big FU by the press. Oh, you played too early last time. We'll give you the late game this time, except you're playing on Tuesday.
Who got the early game on Saturday? Was it Liverpool?
Maybe Chelsea.
Because I know the other manager that complained. So it wouldn't be surprising.
I think it's Chelsea because Liverpool don't play till Wednesday, so like they can hold them off until Sunday. If they want.
The Worldwide Red Show says here, hello, mate. The FA does English sides in Europe no favours for the most part when there's money involved. All of this is about money, guys. Everything's about money.
Why country helps their teams, though? That's what I never get.
What's Joe saying?
Or Serie A, they all help their teams before a European tie. But the Premier League have something up their ass that they don't like to help the big teams in the league, and I don't understand it. They're the ones that make you the most money.
Well, I mean, Joe and I spoke about this on the happy hour last week. It's because of people like me and the folks in New York and the folks and some of our listeners, the folks in India. The fact that we are watching, they want to make sure that because we're watching Manchester United, we're not watching West Brom. We'll watch them when they're playing United, but they want to make sure that United are on TV for the most eyeballs. It's have your cake and eat it too. Like it's not one or the other. They go hand in hand.
Well, how does that make sense then for the earlier game?
It's nothing to do with the FA. The FA lost all power of English football when they sold to the Premier League, mate. So it's literally, it's a shame, but it's nothing to do with the FA whatsoever. The only thing the FA are responsible for here is selling the rights to football to the likes of the Premier League and everybody else, mate. So I'm not having to go at Worldwide Reds, but I'm just saying it's not really the FA. The FA have no power over scheduling now.
Yeah, well, then it's whoever won in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Well, that's why a smaller side could win it, one that's playing once a week. Okay, guys, we're going to move on to midfield because I know Joe and Mark have been waiting very, very patiently. This is going to be an interesting one because I think after hearing what Ciaran said about the way that West Brom play, we'll start with you, Mark. United, I really hope that United don't go for a McTominay and Fred double pivot. I really hope they don't because, one, we're at home, and two, we need to find a way to get some more creative players in that midfield for me. It's too much of a safety first, and this is what Ollie really needs to do. This is what he's paid to do. He's got to go and get the likes of Paul Pogba, Van der Beek, someone like that in the team. Jamie says here, Pogba definitely starts on Saturday. I think Pogba starts. I would start Pogba. I know Ciaran and Marc.
He's just played 3 games, like Pauly said, and he hasn't played well.
In 6 days. Oh, he did. I think he played well for France, but like he's not that confidence. But 3 games in 6 days, you're gonna need him against Istanbul. Like, here's the thing: if Pogba starts playing well, name me a game on our upcoming schedule where you don't need him. Like that's the so maybe this is the one where you could get away with playing him for 25 minutes.
Yeah, Marc, I'm going to bring you in. What are you thinking about the midfield options? I mean, what would you be doing? United need creativity. They need to dominate the game. Would you be going for Fred McTominay as a double pivot?
Can you hear me all right, first of all?
No. Sound very far away, mate.
Really? Okay, hang on. All right, so is that a bit better? I'll
shout
a little bit.
Nope.
Joe, you
come
go
back to me in a bit. Come back to me in a bit.
Go on, Joe.
What was the question, mate? Sorry, because I wasn't. You were asking Marc.
Come on!
Sorry, mate.
The midfield.
Talk to me about the midfield. Talk to me
Yeah,
about
no, I'm like you, mate. I don't really want to see necessarily a very defensive midfield in McTominay and Fred. I've said it before. We used to laugh at Manchester City under Mancini when they used to play Nigel de Jong and Gareth Barry in midfield for home games at the Etihad because of all the attacking talent that they had. So, yeah, I don't want to see us do that, but you just wonder whether that is the only way we can get some balance in our midfield. To be fair, the evidence shows that that's been the best balance for us this season. And I'm like you guys, like we said earlier in the show, at the top of the show, I don't necessarily think West Brom are just going to come and sit back. So, we might need a bit of protection there for our back 4, back 3, back 5, whatever you want to call it, whatever it'll be. So, I'm not sure. I mean, I would like to see Pogba play. I think it's a game where if he could play and play well, I think it would be good for him and good for his confidence. Like in terms of playing for United, he's obviously openly said that he's struggling with this at the moment. Obviously, it's a tough time in his career, so you feel like he could do with a game or some minutes in a game where he could start to build some confidence. And if this game went to plan, then this is the type of game where that could happen. But yeah, I'm not sure. I wouldn't like to see 2 DMs in the shape of Fred and McTominay. I would like to see us be a bit braver. The problem is if we are brave and we do start to get done early on in the game, how do you change that then?
But you know what you should do is you look at that game against Spurs where West Brom came out and took it to Spurs and they just could not score at all. Like they were terrible. Like if they had half decent players, like it was as if their front 4, they had 4 Andreas Pereiras. Like if you just had if you had 4 Daniel Jameses, they would have scored a goal. So maybe you can get a little bit adventurous there and say, well, if we do, Pogba's playing better. The hope is that Matic, plays like he did against Leipzig and not like he did in any of the other games he's played this year, which I guess, statistically speaking, not looking good. You hope that if there is like a small breakdown, that West Brom aren't good enough to put it in the back of your net.
Mate, don't say that because genuinely that's just tempting fate. The thing is, as Worldwide Red says...
You mean how I basically said Aubameyang will score against us?
Yeah, and he did. We only use a defensive double pivot to cover for the Lindelof-Maguire partnership. Yeah, look, the problem is that, unfortunately, after the Spurs game, it's just kind of scared Ollie into going a bit more conservative. And Jamie's right, what he said earlier, that Ollie trusts Fred and McTominay, and at the moment, they are our best midfielder with Bruno. But you've got to find a way to try and bring... I think you've got to try and bring more creativity into that midfield. Now, it really depends how West Brom play, doesn't it? I mean, Joe, if United are going to be given the ball, let's say if West Brom don't press, then you can't play Fred and McTominay.
No,
you can't be to unlock
that. This is the problem that we had against Chelsea. How do you know that that's going to be how they play? Like,
we just don't know.
You didn't think Fred and McTominay were the wrong choice against Chelsea until the game started, and you're like, oh, wow, Chelsea are not playing the way we thought they would, and this is bad.
But that's where Ollie has to make those changes early on.
Yeah, this is what happens when you try and preempt, isn't it? When you predict a team to play a particular way and then they don't. It's probably easier for Ollie to sort of change it from McTominay to Fred to something else if the game is different. Where it's very difficult if he goes too attacking and we're just too open to then how does he justify, I don't know, taking someone, if we're 1-0 down at half time, it's not going to look great if he's taking an attacking player off to shore things up, is it? Whereas if it's 0-0 at half time, we can take a defensive player off and put a more attacking player. It just looks better.
The problem is that when it's 0-0 at halftime or 1-0 at halftime, and it's clear that Fred and McTominay aren't doing it, he doesn't make that change at halftime.
I know, yeah, but what I'm saying is, from us fans and us looking at the game afterwards, we're going to be much more happier to see him making a positive change and rather than a change taking it back, if you know. But yeah, like you said, I mean, there's a lot of evidence out there to say that he's very hesitant to change games, isn't he? Sometimes
but that's a massive. That is one thing. If there is a criticism that you do have while you're going to Solskjaer, Mark, I'm going to bring you in. Hopefully, you don't sound like you're about 5,000 miles away down the hole. But yeah, look, that is one of the biggest things that a lot of people do say about Ollie is that he doesn't change it, or a lot of the changes are pre-planned. You know, it's as if he's coming together and thinking, right, so I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You got to react, and you know, the best managers in the world do that. You know, if United are going more conservative and Worldwide Reds. I'm just going to call you Sean because I know you're Sean. Hello, Sean. Hello, mate. To be fair, I don't know why I just did that from the beginning. Ollie's coached conservatively for most part since he was appointed full-time manager, so I expect him to pick the best team, sit back and try and counter. I disagree with that. I don't expect him to do that. We're at home. The onus is on us. We're playing, you know, some of the basement boys. Mark, what is your thoughts on the midfield options?
Right, can you hear me all right now?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
I just want to say I apologise for that. I really don't know what happened. It just died a death and turned into dial-up. So anyway, and firstly, you've just exposed Sean, and then you disagree with him. What a double whammy! It's going to be. Yeah, we need to. I said this earlier. I don't know what you guys said earlier. I really hope we don't start with a double pivot. I think against a team like West Brom, I think it would be a prime opportunity to start with a single pivot and really try and push forward. We've seen before, and I'm sure some of you guys may have already said this, that when we start with McTominay and Fred, we struggle to push the ball forward. And I think that against West Brom, we really need to start quickly and we need to go at them. So starting with those two would not be, but as Pauly said earlier, our views are probably a lot different to what Ollie is going to go with. So I really hope he doesn't, you know, we've spoken about this a lot of times recently, that as soon as you see that double pivot of Fred and McTominay, you're already in a bit of a defeatist mode and thinking, oh, okay, we're going to, you know, just sit back and come at us. But yeah, I agree with what you said. I don't think we are going to try and counter-attack. I think a lot of fans are going to be surprised just by how much they may attack us. But I think we're going to try and go at them, close them down, and really set the tone. At least I hope so.
Can I just say something? Everybody keeps saying, "Oh, we don't need a double pivot." Like that term is being thrown around a lot. Like no matter what, we're getting a double pivot. Like even when it's Pogba Matic, it's a double. Like, you know, it's not like we say Pogba just run free. Like he sits pretty deep. It's a matter of, is it Fred McTominay? But I have to say, I think Fred McTominay might be the right call in this game.
Oh, God. Okay, Ciaran, I'm going to bring you in. Wait. So one thing I will say, Pauly, you are correct. I'll tell you why. Because Ollie goes with 4-2-3-1. That's his preferred system. Jamie said here, 4-3-3 is way forward. It's not, though, because we don't have a mobile
we don't have the players to do it.
Midfielder, or we don't have quick enough centre-backs. That's the problem. We need a right winger, yeah. So it's not. Ollie's doing the right thing going 4-2-3-1. The deficiencies in the market or where we didn't get a right winger, or we don't have one to start straight away, is really hurting us. And when Mason's not playing regularly with whatever's going on off field, Ciaran, you know, the 4-2-3-1 is right. And Pauly is correct. This idea of the single and double pivot, the double pivot is completely fine. There's no issues with the double pivot. There's no issues with the 4-2-3-1. The issues arise when the personnel that are playing. And if you want to execute more of an expansive game plan, Fred McTominay probably will start, but I still think you got to bring Pogba in. I know you're not Pogba's biggest fan, and we're going to finish off the last 10 minutes talking about Paul Pogba. I want everyone's views quickly on Paul Pogba.
Nobody else has been talking about him recently.
Well, I haven't heard Ciaran's views, and I know myself and Ciaran and Mark slightly argued on the group chat about Paul Pogba because I feel like he is the easy one to escape. But Ciaran, first, talk to me about your midfield and what you'd go for, and then just talk to me a little bit about Paul Pogba.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I actually agree with Pauly. I think the right call is probably going to be Fred and McTominay because the issue is you still need balance against a team like West Brom because they attack direct. They don't just once they win the ball, they're going for it as quick as they can. And the problem is with our defense is when we haven't had Fred and McTominay kind of giving us that balance, we've looked terrible defensively. It doesn't matter that it's West Brom. Just go back to the Istanbul game. Demba Ba was able to rip us apart. So, like, if he was able to do it, you've seen this West Brom team, they can attack. Look, they were terrible in front of goal against Tottenham, but then they scored 3 goals against Chelsea. So you can't just say that they're not going to be able to attack and score. You do need balance, and then you have to hope that those attacking players are just good enough. You look at the Everton game, why were United able to get back into it? It was the quality of Rashford and Bruno Fernandes that really separated us from being able to score those goals. So
I'd argue as well, Ciaran, that actually Everton they didn't really press us, did they? They sort of played to our hands and
press. They pressed a lot in the middle third, which opened them up and was expansive, so they weren't sitting back, and that's pretty much how West Brom play. Also, they press a lot in the middle third. They're very defensively, they're similar to Everton. So I think, McTominay and Fred did a really good job of hitting the spaces and making those incisive passes against Everton, which is why I think they might be the right way to go in this game too, because like those spaces will still be there.
Yeah, it's tricky because you do see West Brom when they're playing. Look, if I was a United fan, don't get like really stuck up on what happens in the first kind of half an hour. You've seen some of their bigger games against Everton, Leicester, Tottenham. To a certain, like you can use Chelsea because they didn't score till the second half. But in those big games, there wasn't a lot of chances for the opposition in the first half hour. So United are going to have to be solid within that first half an hour, 35 minutes. And then they have to become more expansive and they have to try and open up the gaps. I think early on, they need to kind of see what West Brom are trying to do to them in the first couple of minutes, how they're trying to press. Are they trying to press up high with 4, with 3, or are they sitting a little bit deeper? I don't think they'll sit deep, but you're going to have to see that. The midfield is a tricky one. I do think that Fred and McTominay will play, but again, if you go with 5 at the back, if you have McTominay going back there, well, then maybe you see Fred by himself there. Maybe you see someone like Donny come in. I don't think Donny's going to start. I really don't. I wouldn't be playing Pogba.
No chance Donny starts. If he starts, Mark, I'll buy you.
Don't do it.
He will start, mate. Yeah, I was gonna suggest that I'd start Van der Beek in the middle, VDB in the middle, and then Donny in the middle, and playing all 3 positions. No, for me, I really want to see. We haven't seen Matic for a little while, and I feel that in a game like this, I know you're saying about the Fred and McTominay could work. Well, a double pivot could work, but perhaps they're not good enough to progress the ball. But I feel that if we can play Matic as a single defensive midfielder to shore up the defence, because we need a bit more going forward. And then I would play Donny van der Beek only on the pretense that Pogba's not, he's had 3 games in 6 days, whatever it is.
Also on the pretense that he could stay in position this time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I just feel that I just feel that he's not going to start. I feel on club form at the moment, he's just not as good. And perhaps
personally, I'd be giving Bruno a rest.
Look,
I would be playing Pogba and giving Bruno a rest.
I've said it before. I don't think Pogba's been that great for us. When you see him play, I just feel like there's that divide in the balance of the team. I try and stay away from this big divide. I had this conversation with someone earlier that there's people that just want to criticize Pogba and there's people that just want to make excuses for Pogba. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Pogba hasn't performed to the level that he should be performing for Manchester United. You've seen the amount that he's come in for, that he was supposed to be one of the best players in the team. But tell me, has he ever had kind of a period of time that Bruno had coming into the team? I can't remember it. You can probably
he plays in a different position.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it's that quality of player that you've brought in. For me, I don't see that when you watch him play. I don't think he has had that much of an impact on the game, especially from the start of the season this year. I don't think
this year he has not. Last year he had a big impact.
Yeah, but
Ciaran,
you can't reward players for past performance. It has to be what you're doing.
No, based on this season, he has been terrible. But based on this, Bruno was fantastic against Everton. He wasn't great in the games before that either. Like,
but the difference is that because Bruno's further up the pitch, he's creating more chances for the team. So even if he plays terrible,
what he needs
if
to do
he creates
is
one
there.
chance, you can score a goal and win. Pogba doesn't do
he
that
needs
enough.
To stay there because too often he drops deep and then we don't have somebody there. Like, so this is where Ollie needs to figure something out, is find the balance between giving Bruno that freedom, which you want Bruno to roam around the pitch and have an impact, but you also want him to be in and around the box because, look, he took 3 touches in and around the box against Everton and all 3 ended up in the net, but he only took 3 touches there. Like, you want him to be right outside the box, if not lurking in the box, to be at his maximum effectiveness.
Yeah, and that a lot of that does come to kind of what's behind as well, because if he's given that freedom to do that, it means that you feel secure with what's behind him. But if you're not secure, well, then you're not going to give him that freedom, and that's a big problem. For me, I just don't like seeing when Pogba has to go back defensively because, one, we already know he's suspect when he's tackling. The other thing is I just don't see that defensive work rate from, because we hear, and Deschamps said that, he's a great defender, he can go back and tackle. Well, I saw that goal that France conceded, and he didn't look like a good defender in that one. We've seen plenty of times for United.
What I will say on that goal, though, I agree with you, it was bad, but on that goal, like, it's typical. Not saying you, I saw a typical United fan base. Anything to kick Pogba on. It was that goal. That goal was bad.
But the problem is we've seen that, and the reaction that he had afterwards. He was, and it's one thing because we have seen it at times. We have seen suspect defending from him where the reaction is he gives that cheeky smile. So if that was his reaction, that would be really bad. His reaction was he was angry. He knew he screwed up, and it's like what Haider and I spoke about earlier this week. Like, he is frustrated because he knows he's playing bad. He is putting in the work, and then something like that happens, and it's just like, I'm putting in the work and I still just can't catch a break. And he's just insanely frustrated.
I get that, but I guess what I'm saying is that it's one of those that you have to fix that problem. If you made a mistake, it's fine. Players make mistakes all the time. But you need to go and you need to start rectifying it and not make the same mistake over and over again. If you make the same mistake over and over again, a manager won't be able to trust you. If you're playing in that midfield 3, and we've seen there's not a lot of balance, if Ollie can't trust Pogba to defensively know where he's supposed to be and make those important tackles, he's not going to play in the bigger games. And then really, what's the big benefit of having Pogba? Because he is one, if you look at the actual names that are on the team, he should be playing in those big games, but he's not playing well enough to actually deserve to play in those big games. And that's a big issue that United have. And that's what I hate a lot of these debates, where it always comes down to people either criticizing him or saying how great he is, because really it's not one of those two extremes. It's the truth is in the middle. He's not as bad as people say, and he hasn't performed as well as people want to make it out. And I think the best thing to do is you sit back, you watch the game, you analyze how he played. When he played well, you say he was great in this aspect. When he plays poorly, you need to criticize that too. And it's just one of those things. For me, Paul Pogba is this kind of enigma figure for United, and it kind of we're going to have to just analyze the whole season and see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm going to bring you in, and then
I don't really want to talk about Pogba, Haider, because I did this on the happy hour the other day, and my tweet got brought up by Pauly, and he absolutely smashed me on the numbers once again. So I don't really want to go there, but we had a chat about it. I just think the whole thing with Pogba, it's the transfer fee as well, Haider. The transfer fee's become a massive thing, especially at the time. It's just, everybody, I think, expects a bit much from players when they have a certain transfer fee above their head. And I think what some fans have got to realise is the transfer fee is not really anything to do with the player at all. It's not even a consequence of their ability so much these days. There's so much goes into a transfer fee. Then than just a player's ability, I think, unfortunately, these days. But also, as well, like we were talking about on the happy hour, my issue I have with a lot of the fan base at the moment is we're almost trying to degrade other players to make other players look better, if you know what I mean. So we saw a clip, obviously, earlier in the week where some Pogba, big Pogba fans were trying to obviously suggest that, Bruno hasn't done anything spectacular. He hasn't been that great, just to try and make Pogba look better. And
don't give them airtime.
Don't give them
I know,
airtime.
but what I'm saying is, but that's how a fan base. I'm commenting on it. I just feel like, and
Just don't say that.
You've got your people out there that love Maguire, and your people that, if you want to take the focus off Pogba, people love Maguire, and then there's other people that want to see Tuanzebe play more, or Lindelof, or they prefer Lindelof. End of the day, as a fan base, we will always prefer some players more than others. But I don't think it's fair to criticise players just to project your favourite player, if you know what I mean. It doesn't seem fair. And, that's where I am with it. And I just want to say quickly before I end, because I probably won't speak again to that, I thank everyone for watching and getting in touch. It's been brilliant. Some of you have took an absolute battering I with their thoughts. I feel like we've disagreed with them a lot, but do keep watching and watch us again in the future. We're not always so cruel, but
absolutely.
Hear people's thoughts.
Watch the happy tomorrow, and I'll tear them a new one.
Yeah, you'll tear me a new one. I'm always getting one torn at the moment, mate. To be fair.
God, guys, too much information. Yeah, honestly, the comments have been fantastic, and look, we want to hear different opinions. That's what it's all about. Mark, I'm going to let you say the final word before I say my final word, and we wrap up.
Yeah, I think it's been a series of unfortunate events for Pogba. I think that when I really looked at the goal against France the other day, he was off balance. It was one of those, I think we've all been there. We've been off balance, trying to control it, and we've fallen on our ass. And then it's just pinged in the wrong direction, and then obviously it's ended up in the net. So I think it's just unfortunate. I think, he didn't help himself the other day. If he hadn't have said those comments, I don't think everyone would be on him so much. And I think he's really not helped himself. Do you know what I mean? So, I can't, personally for me, at the moment, I think he needs a bit of time out. I think after his comments and the way that he's played for France, I just can't see him starting. And I said this the other week as well, against Everton, Ollie's biggest game for a long time, and he doesn't start him. And I think that says it all, really. And I think that that will probably continue this weekend. So, it's a tough one. I mean, you can't call these things anymore. And as much as we'd like to think that we know a lot about what they're gonna do and who's gonna play, I think that we could all be very surprised in lots of positions this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, I'm going to wrap up with Sean's comment here about Pogba. I think Pogba checks out a bit like we blamed De Gea for. I agree with a lot of what Ciaran was saying, but Pogba has never had the type of free role that Bruno's had, only during Ollie's interim period. That's the last thing I did want to say is during the interim period, when you did play Pogba further forward, he was absolutely unbelievable. He was unplayable. So what I will say, though, is at the end of the day, what's made it harder for Pogba is that Bruno has come in and hit the ground running, and 31 goals and assists in 33 games is mind-blowing. That is unreal for a midfielder. And unfortunately for Paul Pogba, fans don't remember that Pogba's played most of his football much further back. So why are you trying to compare, those sort of statistics? But unfortunately, that's what happens. What I will say is Paul Pogba does need to up his performances. He does need to stop saying the same things he says every international break because it doesn't help his cause. Also, the British media need to stop misinterpreting things because what he did say actually, well, myself and Pauly have actually broken that down. So make sure you do check that out. That's the Haider and Pauly show. We actually spent half an hour talking about the comments. We break them down exactly what was actually said rather than what was jumped on. But at the end of the day, Paul Pogba, Mark's right, Ciaran's right. I protect Paul Pogba because I think there's more to it than just criticism. There's an underlying hate there, which I don't like. But then on top of that, he is not performing. He does not deserve to be in this team. He's not an automatic starter. And that shows how far United have also come. Over a year ago, we would have said we can't play without Paul Pogba. But now he doesn't get into the side. Whether you agree with that or not is... it is what it is, really. Guys, we're going to come around quickly and ask for your predictions. Pauly, are United winning on the weekend?
All I can tell you is that, and I can guarantee you this, if they do win, Ollie got his team selection right, and if they don't win, he got it drastically wrong.
So you're just going to wait and see.
That's what the narrative will be. We'll be sitting here next week being like, oh, tactics were spot on. Or we're going to be sitting here being like, how could you do this? You knew that it was going to, or, all right, it didn't work out for the first 45 minutes. Why didn't you make a change at halftime?
I mean, Darren over here is right. It's going to be a lot tougher than you think they'll fight. I think they will. I'm not too sure. I think United will scrape it like 1-0, maybe 2-0.
Do you think that the way West Brom plays into our hands?
Yeah, I would say so. Ciaran, what is your score prediction?
I'm gonna go with 3-1. I think it could be tough. It always comes down to that kind of, like I've mentioned, the first half hour. I think if United score a goal in the first half and are winning at halftime, I think it'll be an easy enough or comfortable win. I might set us up quite well for the Champions League midweek. If we struggle early on that first half, it's going to be a tough game. But I think 3-1 is probably a decent enough score.
Yeah, I agree. Pauly Questel says, have to score first. I do agree with him. Joe, what's your score prediction?
Big fan of the show.
Smart man.
Joe, what's your score prediction, mate?
In my opinion, yes.
I think United. It's going to be interesting to see the team. Really, to be honest, it's a difficult. I think on a few players they're going to be playing eeny, meeny, miny, mo with regards to whether they start, and they're going to keep playing it until they get the answer they want. If you know what I mean. I think that's what's happening with Tellez at the moment. He seems to be doing so many tests. They're just doing testing until they get the result that they want to see. If you know what I mean. So, I think I think United will do it. I think Ciaran was spot on, like top of the chart. I think an early goal in these games is so important because an early goal doesn't just change our confidence; it changes the way West Brom are going to play the game, and how they have to approach it. So I think, and I do fancy United might get an early one for some reason. I'm not quite sure, but I also think they might keep a clean sheet. I'm actually going to go for 2-0.
So Mark, last but not least, what are you? You're always a positive one. Are United going to go and be 4-0 FC again? And are they going to try and string some results together like we need to? Otherwise, we'll be talking about Ollie's position again.
You literally took the scoreline from my mouth. I think it's going to be 4-0.
If it isn't, you will have to wear a suit for your funeral next week. Guys, thank you. Guys, thank you so much for all your comments. It's been really great. Thank you for all the interaction. Make sure that you check out some of the few other ones. Pauly and Joe are returning again tomorrow for a live show at 5:30 p.m. That is United Happy Hour. So they'll be talking about some of the biggest news. And make sure you check out the Haider and Pauly show. We discussed the Paul Popper comments. And myself and Ciaran are back for the Fantasy Football Show. Myself and Mark did a show yesterday called Just Another United Show with United Henry from the United Districts. So much content coming out. We've got a live show as well after West Brom game with myself and Rob Blanchett. We're doing the masterclass. We're going live again. So make sure you check out all the amazing content. We are a couple of subscribers away from 700. So if you're watching us on Periscope, jump over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button. And that would really, really help us because we've got an exciting giveaway. Thank you again, guys. And we'll see you all next time.